Hello, my name is Arun Nagarajan and welcome to another exciting episode of Google Developers Live. I'm normally part of the AppScript team, so the folks that are dialing in expecting the Drive team, I'm making a guest appearance on behalf of them. And it's actually a pretty interesting show today, so we're going to be talking about how do you build Google Drive apps using AppScript. AppScript, those of you not familiar, it's a very interesting and exciting product that we have that allows you to write JavaScript programs that run on the Google Cloud that allows you to automate, extend, and integrate with Google Apps from the inside. So being able to read your email, being able to automate calendar activity, being able to do things with docs and spreadsheets and things like that. And Google Drive SDK, on the other hand, allows you to build very complex apps that layer on top of Drive, allow you to store things in Drive, be able to open documents in Drive with your applications. In the Google Drive documentation, you can see a lot of really good details on how do you build your apps using many of the languages that they have given client SDKs for, and also sort of quick start guides for. A lot of these require you have access to a server, someplace you can actually run this code. The nice thing about Google Apps Script today that you'll see is that you'll be able to build and run these applications right from the Google data centers. So you're able to go to script.google.com, write your code, and run it from right there, and run it as the user that's accessing it. So hopefully at the end of this, you'll have some sample code that you can walk away with. We'll put it all on GitHub as always, and you'll be able to kind of get at it and tweak it and build some interesting applications. And yeah, so a lot of interesting ideas that we have today. Let me also show you a little bit about Google Apps Script as well. So Google Apps Script has a documentation site at developers.google.com/apps-script. And there's a lot of really good details about what can you do. Just from a quick point to note is everything under default services is something that you want to be really familiar with as far as building apps with AppScript. So even things like document. So this is Google Docs. So being able to build a Google Doc with this amount of detail, so being able to add containers, alignments properties, being able to add footers, headers, things like that. So it's really powerful to be able to access docs and spreadsheets from within rather than sort of the peripheral things that Google Drive provides, which is very powerful integration points. And of course, the two things that you can do with the Google Drive SDK is being able to do the create files. That's documented here. Zoom in a little bit, and then be able to open files. Okay, and we'll build an example that integrates with both of that. Great. So let's get started. So the first thing that I'm going to do is go to script.google.com. So that's the one URL you ought to remember at the end of this session. So I get presented with a nice quick start. I'm going to just say that I'll start from scratch. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually copy and paste some of the code that I've written ahead of time, just to save us some time. And I'll explain all the code in some detail that so that you're able to get a sense for what this does. So I'm going to paste this in. Okay. Save this. I'll call this my Google Drive integration. And then create a new file. And I'm just segmenting these into two files for cleanliness. It can really be one file. We'll call this AppScript operations or something. Not really the most creative name, but gets the job done. And in here, I'm going to put in some code that is specific to that part of the world. Okay? Cool. So before I explain the code, let me kind of go back and show you what we're trying to achieve here in the Google Drive SDK. So this is my Drive. So if I go to drive.google.com as a signed in user, I get to see all the files I have, and you can see that the new script that I created has shown up there as well. Google's app scripts are first-class citizens that will show up in your Drive. And you're able to see that when you hit create, you get this sort of rich set of capabilities that you're able to do within Google Drive, create documents, presentations, and so on. And you get this little dialog that says connect more apps. When you click on that, you see some really exciting applications like being able to do rich diagramming with Lucidchart. I know HelloFax is here. So these are all partners that have written really exciting applications for Google Drive to be able to connect into your Drive experience. And our goal is to be able to surface within this interface and to be able to do your custom integration, be able to run your custom workflows and so on. And this is coming from the Chrome Web Store. And in the very first example, we'll actually directly install the application without having to go to the Chrome Web Store. Okay? So that's what we're trying to achieve, is be able to connect your application to your Google Drive account. All right, so go back in here, copy and pasted that code. So it's asking to fill in a few things here. So the first thing that I need to do is take this code and publish it as a web app. So in order to do that, you need to manage versions. And then you go under publish, deploy as a web app, and you want to say, select the version you want to run. And in this case, there's only one, so it's easy. And then you want to execute that as a user accessing the web app. And I'm going to say anyone with the Google account can access this. I'll hit deploy, and I'll get a URL. So this is the URL that I'll start to play around with now. I'll hit copy there, and I'm going to say that's my redirect URL. I'm going to manually paste that in. There are ways to programmatically determine that, but it's best to kind of manually paste that in for debugging and make sure that you're looking at the right thing. The next thing it's asking me is for client ID and client secret. So these are things that are related to OAuth. So we'll kind of set that up really quickly. If I go to developer.google.com/console. So OAuth 2 is something that you have to worry about if you want to directly allow installation for the user. So from here, I'm going to say create project. We'll call this, let's see, Drive integration. Okay. It's creating that. Okay, so in here, I'm going to turn on Drive SDK. That's the most important one. But Drive API, I may need that in the future, so I'll turn that on as well. And then I think it auto saves it. That's great. Then I'll come into API access. And here's going to be, I need to create OAuth 2.0 client ID. I'll call this Drive integration. And for now, I'll just use a dummy or AppScript-oriented one, developers.google.com/apps-script images script-128.png. And then I'll set that as the home page as well. Cool. And then here, I'm going to say the callback is the URL that we copied from here, this guy. Okay? So this will allow us to manage the callback workflow from within our application. So once I create this, I'll now have the client ID and client secret. So you can see that under web application. So I'll delete this project right after this demo. So this is something that will be specific to the user accessing it. And then I'll go to client secret, paste that in. Okay. And then since I did update the code, I do have to redeploy it. So there is this sort of little bit of a circular redeployment that's necessary. But it's pretty quick overall. So I'll redeploy it. Great. So let's take a look at what I've done so far. So I've created a script within my Drive. This could be directly from script.google.com as well. And over here, I've set up an OAuth 2.0 workflow that requests the drive.install scope. So this is the critical sort of request that we're making. Once this request is fulfilled, what happens is this application is connected to that user's Drive account. So that's an important thing to remember. This drive.install scope is manually requested in this case. If it's coming in from the Chrome Web Store, it actually is, the code becomes a lot less simpler. Chrome Web Store takes care of that drive.install scope for you and then gives you access to the requested scopes from there. So that's one of the things to keep in mind with the Chrome Web Store integration. So in this case, we're manually requesting install access instead of them finding it from the Chrome Web Store. So I believe I've republished it. Great. So let's take a look at what happens when I access this. So if I go here, click on this code. So I'm going to visit this URL. So the very first thing is it's going to say, are you giving this access to these sort of services that it's asking for? I have to authorize that first. We're working on consolidating all that scope requirements, all the authentication flow. So now here's the code that kind of kicks off our installation process. Click to start. And this is the OAuth 2.0 flow. And it says right here, adds itself to Google Drive. You can see that it's asking for specifically both the open with and create menu. And I'm going to say allow access. Okay, so it's going to install it, and now I'll be able to go into the Drive. So one of the things that I haven't done yet is be able to tell it where, I realized that I haven't provided this information here. I need to go into Google Drive SDK and then actually register the callback URLs explicitly here as well. So over here, what I'll just do is select some images that I have locally. Hopefully it'll come up quickly here on my desktop. There's one. I just created a simple image. Say select here as well, and it should be the same image for now. I hit select. Okay, and then I'll say the URL is that URL that I had copied before, and the MIME type I want for now is application/PDF. So we'll get into this detail in a little bit, and I'll say allow people to create as well, and the same URL. Meeting notes I'll say, and I'll explain that in a second, and allow people to import. So those are the specific settings for this particular application that we're demonstrating. I'll hit save changes, and now I'll come back to Drive, and it should pick up those changes that I made. Let me actually manually reconnect this. So you can see that under Manage Apps is where I can sort of disconnect and reconnect things. So I'll disconnect that. Sorry about that confusion. And I'll revisit that URL. So it's going to say install this app. It's going to ask me for permission again. And I'll say allow access. And it says it's installed, or you can go navigate to Drive. So this is just very simple HTML that I've used, and you can pretty this up. So now we're back in Drive. And now when I click on this, I should see, let's see, I made a mistake here, I guess. Let's take a look. It's not picking up. Go back to the console, save changes. Did it save? Let's take a look here. API access. We have that there under Drive SDK. Icon.large is filled in, and application PDF. Cool. So let me just make sure I refresh this. What did I screw up here? Let's take a look. So this is the same account. So let's take a look at the, go in here. So paste that in there. The token's not correct. Take a look. Something is not clicking correctly there. I should get a new option there. Let me just double check all my keys and everything. So this ends in BD4. Go in here, go to publish, deploy as web app. This should also end in BD4. Meeting notes is there. Let's take a look. What am I missing here? There should be something. These are the joys of live demos. Hopefully I'll catch the error quickly here. Maybe the order of things that I did was incorrect. So let's just quickly redo this. Hopefully I'll catch it there. If I just create a new project, we'll call this Drive, My Drive Integration. Just give it a unique name so I'll catch it. I'll do this in the correct order this time around. Go turn on both Drive API and Drive SDK. Takes a second there. So those are saved. I can now see Drive SDK is enabled. I'll select the icons again. Pick that guy. See a little collage there. Go ahead and pick this. Okay, so the URL, will use the same URL application/PDF, create with, save that, meeting notes. Okay, so let's see if I got everything correctly this time. So I don't want to initiate the flow directly, and I say save changes. And if I go to API access, create a new token, call it app script. Update script images/update, and I'll just say for now developers.com app script. Next, and I'll say more options, paste that into the callback. We don't want that. Create that, and I'll create this client ID. Go back in here, client ID, paste that in, and then client secret. Okay. File, manage versions, save a new version, publish, user accessing the web app, update. Okay. Click on that. So that should now force me to reinstall again. And let's see if we're lucky this time. If not, I have a backup. Oh, there it is. It just took a couple of extra seconds, it seemed. I have it installed twice. Apologize for the confusion there. So let's take a look at what we're trying to accomplish here. So we got a couple of icons. I'll just leave it be for now. Maybe that was just a refresh issue. So I'll go back and kind of showcase what I'm trying to do here. So in my calendar, I have a currently ongoing meeting called status meeting. So this is a meeting that I have, and I've invited a few people, and I have a set of agenda items in here that we're trying to walk through. This is completely fictitious. And I like to, when I have a meeting, have agenda written out ahead of time, and then have a meeting notes document that goes along with it, where I can track action items and check off things that we accomplish against the agenda and so forth. So what I would like in my Drive is to be able to say, when I say create meeting notes, have it scan my calendar using the AppScripts API, which is extremely succinct and able to run very quickly using the JavaScript APIs that we have, and then create a document with notes from that pre-populated, and then also potentially share it out with other folks and so on. So if I can say create meeting notes, you can see that it's spinning away. And it called back into our code. You can see that script.google.com is the callback. And then when I hit click here to open, there's the document that got created for me. So you can see that meeting notes for status meetings, which is sort of the subject that it took from the calendar appointment itself, and then it nicely formatted something for us. So let's take a look at this code. So here's the code that gets run. Very simple function here that says, find the 2-hour window. Pretty naive sort of set of logic that I'm using, but this is just an example to kind of demonstrate what's possible. And then it does document app.create. So this is the line of code that creates the Google document, and then appends some content into it. A few paragraphs, a horizontal rule, and then another paragraph, and then it gets the URL from which we can very quickly click in and open. So that you can see that a very few lines of code. I think it's about 25 lines of code, including the code to get the email list of people that are in the meeting itself. And you can see that it's pretty straightforward to do this. So you can see that this is getting called from this sort of endpoint, which is as you know from the Google Drive SDK, the AppScript code gets a callback with the parameters that the user requested. So in this case, specifically, the user requested the create action. And when create is done, I don't care for any other sort of details. I'll just say create meeting notes, which will scan the calendar and then get the URL back, and will display the URL right there. Pretty straightforward, and you can see that it's actually kind of amazing how short this can be. And I can show you the code looks like, it looks for this JSON object. So when you say create, there is a parameter called state right there, which gets sent in the get parameter, and it contains these sort of attributes within it. And same for open files. Okay? And we'll do that as well next. So far we've done one simple demo, which is takes my calendar data and then automatically creates a Google document for me as the account that I'm currently logged in at. And that's happening because when we published it, if you recall, we set it as execute the app as the user accessing the web app, not as the person authored the code, but the person that accessing it. So you can see that just by authorizing the user against a script, and it listed all the things, right? Calendar, Gmail, documents, and so on. By listing that, the authorization is taken care of in one shot, and you're able to kind of write code against all the different APIs that we have access to. All right, let's take a look at what else that we can do here. So one of the things that is problematic sometimes is to be able to send a lot of documents at once from Google Drive to a person that may not be using Google Docs or spreadsheets and so on. So maybe they want it in PDF or some other printer-friendly or more standard format that can be viewed from anywhere without a Google account. So one of the things that I imagine would be interesting for this example is, what if there was an extension that we could write? When you run it, it's able to take the file you've selected, convert it to a PDF, zip it up, and then be able to send it in an email to yourself or someone else that you want to share it with. This is great when we're working with folks that are not with Google Docs, or you want to send it as an attachment that can be viewed by anyone without an account. So it's a great example of how you can do multiple steps within the same exact script. So here's one where the same options available when you do right-click open with, or if I select multiple options here, I can do it from right-click here as well. And you can see that the right-click options available. If I say more open with. You know what I didn't do? In my console, I didn't enable multiple. There should be an option here for multiple file support. So I didn't select that. If I had selected that, it'll allow me to do that for multiple options. But for now, we'll just do it in one example, and I think that'll kind of satisfy the demo here. So if I right-click here and I say open with, this is not the window, this is the window. If I right-click here and say open with and say send to open with Drive integration, what that's going to do is it's going to open up our app. You can see that it's spinning with our example there. And it's going to take that and send it to us as an inbox. So you can see if I come back to my inbox, there should be an email here waiting. You know what? I picked the one that I uninstalled, I believe. So we'll go here and I'll say open with AppScript, this guy. So by registering two versions, I think I've screwed up parts of this. There it is. Files you requested. And there's a zip file, and I can download it, and I can open that up, and there should be a, let's see, where are we in my Finder? A lot of files in there, and it should say files for you. Then this is my status meeting example that I had used, right? So that's a PDF file. So you can see that how easy it is, and we'll go take a look at the code as well. And this code is actually even more straightforward. This says if I am going into the one with multiple files, it's going to say, to go in here and say, let's take a look at this code, which is zip and send. And that's going to take all the different IDs, get the email address of the person that's currently logged in, and it's going to iterate through all the different files, get a version of it with the PDF attached to it as a file name, and then it's going to turn them into one file called filesforyou.zip. And then mail it to you. So you can see that it's extremely straightforward to build these sort of workflows without having to write a lot of code. So one of the nice things is that you can actually submit this to the Chrome Web Store. So we have ability, let me zoom out a little bit because I think it's hard to kind of see all the aspects of the editor. One of the things you can actually do is you're able to say publish and then register in Chrome Web Store. So what this does is it essentially whitelists the URL for this particular script deployed as a web app in the Chrome Web Store registry. So that means you own the URL and you're going to be able to register that as a Drive app or whichever type of application you want to deploy it as. So by doing this, let's just walk through this. So I'll say register as web app. So you can see that it says communicating with Chrome Web Store. Just take a couple of seconds. So this would, and it comes back with a success. And what it does is creates that project in draft mode. So you will not publish the app as is because it's not set to the right container type. So if I go to the Chrome developer dashboard, and there is a one-time fee of $5 to access your account, to sort of verify your account. If I go to the developer, go back to your developer dashboard, you can see that there's a listing here created for you called My Google Drive Integration. So you will, however, not publish this version. What you'll do is you'll create a manual manifest. And let me actually go back to this guy here and zoom in a little bit. Let's see, I don't know how to zoom in this particular editor. So let me just kind of zoom in with this guy. So you can see that in this particular, here's a sample manifest file. The operative, there are two important things about this. The container needs to be set to Google Drive, and this of course is all documented. And the API console project ID needs to match the API project console from here, this guy, this API ID, the app ID. And you can see the same thing listed under overview as well. So that's the project number that you'll want to make sure that is available in that manifest. So that's how we tie back. Which project that you're doing, which API project this is correlated to. The last thing is to ensure that your launch URL matches the deployed web app that you have. Okay, so that's actually an important step to ensure that you've gotten the right things. So once you're able to do that, if you go back to the developer dashboard here and go to add new item, and the important thing here is to make sure that you read through these important descriptions about the icon file, the description. It's actually a much more restricted set of sizes you can upload. It ensures that you have the right amount of details in your description. So definitely walk through these steps here to understand exactly what you need to upload. And I think the documentation is great here to get a sense for what you can do. And just to kind of complete the set of demos, I actually had published previously a very simple application that enables you to do what I did with the select multiple files and send it as an email. So I'll go back to my Drive and showcase that example. So if I go to Create, go to Connect More Apps. So this is already submitted and already available for anyone to check out. It's called File Assistant. And you can see that there's a little icon. I've reused the same icon from there, and you can see the URL is a script.google.com account, a URL. So I hit connect, and I'm going to say, don't make it default for now. I hit OK. So you can see that there's no OAuth flow here that I had to deal with at this point. I can just say more, open with File Assistant. So this is, in this particular example, I had correctly selected allow multiple files, and I hit File Assistant. This is going to go through the process of kicking off that script and email sent. So you can see that in that particular example of a file that an app that was already submitted to the web store, there was not even OAuth to drive.install scope request that you had to walk through. So here's an example where if I open this up, there are multiple files in there that I had previously selected. So that's a very quick example of the benefits of being able to install it from Chrome Web Store, but hopefully you saw that you can actually deploy this within your domain or a restricted set of users by just requesting the OAuth to drive.install scope. So that, I think, is about the set of things that I wanted to show. What I'll definitely make sure is that all the code that we had demonstrated here will be available for you to play with, and we'll start to think about new ways to demonstrate the AppScript and Google Drive integration in future episodes. One of the things I did want to mention is that a lot of folks ask us about when do you use Google Drive SDK and when do you use the AppScript API. They're actually very complementary. The Google Drive API is probably more similar in some cases, but that provides a more RESTful interface. The Google AppScripts programs, the apps, they run on the Google data centers themselves. And it's pure JavaScript, it's cloud-based, and you're able to, like I said, write your code, author it, be able to publish it all from a browser without having to open up an IDE like Eclipse or install SDKs to manage that. So the Drive SDK allows you to run this and integrate your applications deep within the Drive UI. The AppScripts API can run under the user's context on the server side. So hopefully all that made sense. Looking forward to seeing what kind of applications you guys build and hearing more feedback from you. Thank you very much.